Good evening, dear viewers. I'm your host, McBayBayz. I trust you've brought your imagination and a flashlight. Tonight's tale crackles in just beneath the static, where forgotten frequencies hum and the dead still have something to say. If you've ever turned the dial and heard a voice you shouldn't have, you might already know this story. So gather close. Tonight's broadcast is called The Corpse Radio. Try not to adjust your signal. Something might hear you. I inherited it from my grandfather, the 1930s Philco radio, beautiful in that crumbling, cigarette-burned, jazz-dead sort of way. It was heavy, a cathedral-style console with walnut curves and mesh that smelled like old nicotine and dust. My parents told me to throw it out. It's probably full of asbestos and ghosts, my dad laughed. He wasn't entirely wrong. First strange thing happened on a cold Thursday in November. I had just moved into my first real apartment, one of those creaky pre-war buildings in Pittsburgh where the radiator bangs like a poltergeist with a hammer. I placed the radio in the corner by the window, more for aesthetic than use, but one night, after a few drinks and a mood for nostalgia, I decided to plug it in. It hissed, popped, then, surprisingly, it came to life. The dial didn't show modern stations, just a worn list of call signs. KDKL, WLW, WOR, names from another century. I tuned the knob carefully. Static. Whispers. A faint ghost of Glenn Miller. Then something else. A voice. It was low, hoarse, like it had been crawling through dirt to reach me. Do not be afraid. I remember you. I shut it off immediately. Chalked it up to interference. Old radios sometimes pick up strange frequencies. That's what I told myself. But it came back the next night. Same voice, different message. I was buried near water. They never found my hands. The voice spoke every night at 2:13 a.m. sharp. Never a second early or late. Each time, it shared more unsettling confessions, snippets of a life ended, or perhaps taken. Names I didn't know, places I had never been. Then it began asking questions. Do you remember the elm tree? Why did you leave me in the cold? I never answered. I was too afraid. But I started researching, and here's where things got historical. In 1938, the Columbia Broadcasting System, CBS, ran a program out of Pittsburgh called the Midnight Memory Hour. It was mostly poetry, jazz, and call-ins from insomniacs. But according to an archived article I found in the Pittsburgh Gazette, the station had to cancel the show after a rash of unexplained deaths. Each victim had one thing in common. They all had an antique Philco radio in their home. Several were found dead beside them, with burned-out vacuum tubes and scorched fingers. One photograph in the article made me freeze. In the background, barely visible through the burn marks on the paper, was my radio. That same model, same dial, even the scratch on the lower right corner matched. I held the article next to the radio. Identical. I didn't sleep that night. I tried to destroy it. First, I unplugged it and carried it down to the dumpster. Thought I heard it whisper as I dropped it in. The next morning, it was back in my apartment, sitting in the same spot, cord reeling like a noose. Then I tried smashing it. The hammer to the face. It cracked, but only the exterior. The inner dial began to bleed smoke. That night, it turned on, without power. You broke me once. It took me years to find your blood again. I began seeing things. Shadows near the radio. a figure that paced back and forth at 2:13 a.m. My reflection in the window didn't always match my movements. I called a priest. He refused to enter the apartment after one step inside. Said the air felt wrong. Said he couldn't hear his own thoughts in there. A few nights later, the voice changed. No longer did it ask questions. It began making demands. Finish what you started. Dig where the elm tree died. Driven to the edge, I did just that. I rented a car, drove 4 hours out to rural Pennsylvania based on coordinates whispered one night. There, near a dried-up creek bed under leafless elm stump, I dug. 6 feet down, I found a skeleton. And nothing but hands. I turned the bones into the police anonymously. For a while, the voice stopped. I thought I was free. But freedom never lasts in these stories, does it? Last night, the radio turned itself on again. Thank you, but you are not finished. There are more of us beneath the waves. I haven't slept since. I've tried to sell it, burn it, bury it, but it always returns. It doesn't belong to me. I belong to it. I don't know how this ends, but if you find an old Philco radio with a scratch on the lower dial, do not plug it in. Do not listen. And whatever you do not answer when it speaks your name. And so ends our little broadcast. Rather bone-chilling, wouldn't you say? Quaint reminder, not all antiques are treasures. Some are traps. Until next time, dear viewer, be careful what you tune into. After all, some voices refuse to die. Good night.